Afternoon, everybody. I'm Martha McCallum. In an extraordinary move, the lockdown people of China are rebelling in some places across that vast nation, and this is triggering an unrest we have not seen in the communist country for decades. Boy, that gives me chills. I mean, this is an absolutely stunning scene that we are watching. Some demonstrators got dragged off in the video that you can see here of the streets. They were thrown into vans. This is a powder keg in China, and it surrounds the zero COVID lockdowns that people have suffered under for 3 years now in that country. It finally exploded after 10 people were killed in a fire in a building that was locked down in Urumqi last week. Many are blaming these measures for the inability to escape the fire. There have been other tragedies that have been linked to these lockdowns as well. But months of quarantine, travel restrictions, even children who have been separated from their moms and dads because they tested positive have led to what is now unfolding in China, which is an absolutely stunning moment. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo will weigh in moments, but first let's go to correspondent Jillian Turner in D.C. Hi, Jillian.
Hi, Martha. I want to bring you a bit of breaking news right off the top here. This is developing right now. The BBC has just posted video to their Twitter handle. They say is of one of their reporters being beaten by Chinese police last night while he was covering protests in Shanghai. They also say that as of now, the Communist Party has told them they removed their reporter from the scene to protect him from getting COVID from the crowd. We'll bring you any updates as they come. Meanwhile, the NSC tells us they support the protesters. We asked whether U.S. politicians' push for renewed mandates could similarly backfire here at home. They tell us, quote, "We think it's going to be very difficult for the People's Republic of China to be able to contain this virus through their zero COVID strategy. For us, we're focused on what works. That means using the public health tools like continuing to enhance vaccination rates." So in Shanghai, the nation's largest city, there were clashes with police overnight. In the capital city, Beijing, protests are still flaring now, including peaceful student protests at one of China's most prestigious universities. All of this a first during President Xi Jinping's long tenure.
It's not just protests against some local official because he's corrupt. This is against Xi Jinping and the Communist Party. And I think that what we're going to see eventually, let's say within a couple of years, is that the party will fail.
Tension boiled over Thursday after an apartment fire killed 10 people in a high-rise in Xinjiang province. This was where some residents had been locked down for 100 days. Republican lawmakers say the situation is becoming barbaric.
They're still welding Chinese people into their apartments. We've had apartment buildings burned down with people locked inside. We have toddlers being taken from their parents and put into quarantine camps.
This afternoon, Martha, there are mounting concerns about the impact these protests are going to have on stocks. We're already seeing a bit of it decline worldwide in equities, as well as the potential for disruptions to the global supply chain. Martha?
Indeed. Jillian, thank you very much. With that, we bring in former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, a Fox News contributor. Mr. Secretary, good to have you with us. This is an astonishing thing, a moment that we are watching unfold in China. I guess the most important question in many ways is, what does President Xi do? What does he do next?
Well, Martha, it's great to be with you. It is truly remarkable to see these protests calling out Xi Jinping directly himself. After just a month ago, he was given essentially a term for life. I think people could see that. As I said back in May of 20, the Chinese Communist Party doesn't represent the people of China, the 900 million people who just want a little bit more freedom. I fear that what Xi will do is what the Chinese Communist Party leaders like Mao have always done. They've used force, they've used brutality to quell these uprisings and to restore order and power. I hope our administration will do everything within its power to prevent that from happening. I hope the world will rise up and recognize the real risks that are happening inside of China as a result of this communist rule that's impacted us all.
Yeah, I think when you look around the world right now and you see the incredible courage on the part of protesters in China, also in Iran, we're going to speak to Masih Alinejad in a little while, and I think of the Ukrainians as well, who are pushing back against Vladimir Putin. This is an extraordinary thing that's happening in all three of these countries. So I guess one of the questions is, are we seeing something different here? And no doubt there will be a crackdown. We have an image from Tiananmen Square, which, you know, those of us who are old enough to remember that, that's pretty much the last time I can remember seeing anything like this in China, Secretary.
Yeah, no, that would include me. I remember 1989 very well. I remember how the administration responded as well, making clear our expectations for how they would treat their own people and the support we provided to them. I hope the Biden administration will do the same thing. You know, you're right. I think these regimes often seem sturdy and strong and eternal, and yet they're deeply fragile. The deal that had been made, right, was that they'd have a better economy and they'd give up some political freedom. That was essentially the Communist Party's deal for the Chinese people. And when you begin to lock them down, right, from the very place that 3 years ago this month, the Chinese Communist Party knew they had a virus unleashed, November of 19, unleashed inside the country. They've been locked down since then. It is a set of failed policies, and now it's coming back to haunt the very administration that caused
I'm going to jump in, Secretary, because Peter
the
Ducey, I'm going to come right back to you, sir. Peter Ducey, if you don't mind, is asking a question. Let's watch.
We've made it clear, Peter, that a lockdown is not a policy that we're going to support here. We've come a long way over these last 3 years. Hard to believe, 3 years in terms of treating COVID and preventing COVID. So we've said, you know, a lockdown is not a policy that we support here. But obviously there are people in China that have concerns about that, and they're protesting that, and we believe they should be able to do that peacefully.
Okay. And on the sanctions relief,